Yeah. Okay.
This guy in the end.
Are you in the Manda session?
Yes.
They all know what you're doing, do they?
Okay, yeah,
Do they?
I do in the last 15 minutes.
Okay, but you're all together.
Yes. That's quite confusing.
Yes. Are you sitting on the stage or down? I'm going to go down there after I've. I'm going to introduce you. Okay. I'm going to introduce you, but I'll leave you to introduce your team. Okay. No, you introduce me. Because I'm introducing everybody. Oh, what's your name? Michael. Oh. It's like I'm missing information. I'll wear the lavalier. The work? Michael? Nathanson. 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 And what's your... I'm the CEO of Rewilding America Now. Oh, brilliant. He's doing... I'm introducing him, not... Right. Well... Morning, everybody. My name's Alistair Driver. I'm Director at Rewilding Britain. Great to see you all here. Fantastic conference. I want to, because I won't have a chance to say it later because I've got to go at lunchtime or soon after, I just want to say a massive thank you to Citizen Zoo, a tiny organisation organising an incredibly huge and complex event. It's a massive undertaking and you've done a brilliant job. So now we have a session of three presentations in this theatre to take us to lunch. And the first one involves Team America. They don't do things by halves. I have 2 children and 10 grandchildren living in America, and I'm getting used to spending a lot of time there, and they certainly know how to do things properly. So I'm going to hand over straight away to the CEO of Rewilding America, Michael Nathanson, who's going to introduce the team, and they are going to tell us all about rewilding the American West.
Thank you. I think I have a mic. Can you all hear me? Yeah. As it says up there, I'm Michael Nathanson. I'm the CEO of Rewilding America Now, and I'm honored to be here today. Quite honestly, I'm a little intimidated because my background, I don't know any, I have no environmental education. I'm learning about wildlife. I'm not from the world of academia. I actually have spent 4 decades in the movie business. I was the president and chief operating officer of MGM. Prior to that, I was the president of Columbia Pictures. I've produced about 25 movies. I spent a lot of my time worrying every weekend about weekend box offices or whether Pierce Brosnan was too old to play the 4th James Bond. And I got a call from a friend of mine who said, would I have lunch with Manda in Los Angeles, where I live, which is burned down, by the way, which I'm sure you've all heard about. If you haven't, please learn about it. So I met Manda for lunch. I didn't know what it was about, and she started to explain to me what she does. She's rewilding horses in the American West, in Idaho, in North and South Dakota, and would I be interested in making a documentary about what she's doing? And she wrote a book, and would I be interested in adapting the book and making it into a film? Well, quite honestly, I didn't really understand anything she was talking about. Rewilding was a new word for me. The government is capturing horses and we're rescuing them, and it didn't make any sense, and I didn't think I was the right guy for the job. So I politely passed. About 3 or 4 months later, I got another call, this time from Manda. She said, I'm coming to Los Angeles with the then CEO of the organization, and we need to have dinner with you. Would you join us? I said, of course. And when I sat down to dinner, they hit me hard, twisted my arm, said, we need you to film. We're going to deliver some horses in North Dakota, and we need you. And I'm listening to this, and I heard a voice of a former mentor of mine, 25, 30 years ago, who taught me to say yes when something's put in front of me. And I looked up at the table and I looked at Manda and I said, okay, I'll do it. They were shocked. They said, okay, you got to be in North Dakota next week with a film crew. I walked to the car going, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I went up to North Dakota and I met Paul Sibernagel, whose name I'm still struggling to pronounce. And I had a life-changing experience, a significant life-changing experience. I met Paul and the people who live in North Dakota. Paul's an American hero. He operates a 6,000-acre ranch and farm by himself. Every once in a while, he puts his grandson on the combine to get a little help. By night, he's a nurse anesthetician in the emergency room at the local hospital. He does rotational grazing. He's rewilding horses that we put on his ranch. He's an extraordinary person. I left North Dakota and went to South Dakota and met a Native American Indian named Ron Brownwater, who lives on a Standing Rock reservation with a little house. He's rewilding buffalo and horses that we bring to him. He's another American hero. He's an ex-Marine. He lost his brother in Vietnam. He has 2 sons who fought in the Persian Gulf. And he's there to teach his people the art of rewilding, how they can learn to ride bareback and hunt the way they did 100 years ago. He's another amazing man. I left South Dakota and I went to Idaho, Idaho Falls, and then Birch Creek, Idaho. And I met Dave Strickland. Dave Strickland learned to read with a kerosene lamp with his mother reading him the encyclopedia. He later went on, became a doctor of biology, taught at the university level, taught there for many years, left the university level, went and worked at the U.S. Forest Service. Dave is dedicated to the environment, to wildlife, and has inspired us to find what you're going to see in this little film that I'm going to play for you in 7 minutes, that runs 7 minutes long. So these are the people of Rewilding America Now. Wouter, you know, you'll learn a little bit more about him when he performs here. And without further ado, let's run the film. And can we take the house lights down, please?
Here, see there are the poles. Here is our land. Well, we're at a little slice of heaven right here in the American West. We're at Birch Creek Valley, Idaho. We're here at Mandalay Ranch. We own 4 grazing allotments. They total 70,000 acres. We're working here to build something that I have waited my whole life to do. I am the only person in America to ever receive a permit from the Forest Service for wild horses. The horses are going to roam freely, and they are going to be the forerunners here in helping to build ecosystems out on our public rangelands.
This is the headquarters for our rewilding project in Birch Creek Valley.
It's a pilot program to show the rest of this country and our government how rewilding can benefit everybody.
This is a good place for rewilding because it's a desert steppe and there are available niches for large herbivores, and horses are very hardy.
What we're trying to do here is recreate, to the degree that we can, a situation in which the species that should be here, that evolved here, that are part of the original ecosystems that used to dominate this region, are reconstituted.
We have been preparing the 4 grazing allotments in Idaho. When our allotments are ready next spring, we are going to allow the horses to go out onto these 70,000 acres of our permits, and they will live year-round, and we will monitor them. We are going to be moving the needle forward. Oh, do you hear them? Do you hear the little prairie dogs? We are in North Dakota, at the Silbernagle Ranch. We are with our students from the Cornell University Brooks Policy School. They are here to learn all about the value of rewilding and the ecology around all of our work. Paul's model here is on his private land. And what makes this so important is that he uses the horses to help him maintain his lands in a healthy way. And he is a successful farmer.
I'm supporting as many animals as anybody else is per acre, but I'm not letting the land deteriorate or go backward. We're trying to get it to go forward.
Paul is a mentor to me. The work that he does and the way he does it is something that I hope to mimic.
The horse originally comes from the United States. And actually, the grasslands you see here, you could say they remember the horse as the species that generates this habitat, this ecosystem.
Horses are a keystone species. Horses eat the grass to the top third. The grass grows, the biodiversity grows.
They're hindgut fermenters, and they move seeds differently on the landscape. And so the pollinators and the insects and the small mammals are going to benefit.
Soil microorganisms that have all the hard jobs in these ecosystems. By virtue of bringing them back, they're going to be able to support plant life that has disappeared from this region.
This is the controlling valley of the corridor in between Yellowstone National Park and the Central Idaho Wilderness.
To the degree that we can reconstitute it, our ambition is to create a corridor for wildlife. Our expectation is that over a period of years, we're going to recreate the conditions that used to exist.
There's fences currently on that land from 50, 60, 100 years ago. We're going to take those fences down, and it's the first time in over a century that these animals can go where they're supposed to go. But there's a problem. Wild horses that are free on the rangelands are managed by the Bureau of Land Management. Bureau of Land Management is managing them by making them extinct.
Gather plans, roundup plans, have been the way they've managed horses for 50 years. That's not management.
The government is rounding up 19,000 horses this summer and this fall. There are 80,000 at least in holding. It's $120 million of federal tax money.
Management of a wild species is water, grass, it's habitat preservation, it's genetic preservation, how the animal uses the range. And when you ask BLM for the equation and how they determined what they call appropriate management level, they can't produce an equation because there is none. From range to courtroom, we've won some great precedents. We've just opened the door through the courts to begin actual management of our wild horses on the range.
We're trying to filter policy into the Bureau of Land Management's management of public rangelands. We are very excited about the fact that this project will be the blueprint for the government, and we are able to get the science and the data to show them the value of wild horses on the public range and how all these animals work together.
If we ever start thinking everything's good enough, we failed. It's your future. And my grandkids and their kids. I want to know I did the right thing.
We at Rewilding America Now know how complicated and difficult the wild horse crisis has been. But environmental rewilding is the solution. It is the solution for the horses, it is the solution for the environment, and it is the solution for the taxpayer. All we need now is to work together to create proper policies that value horses, humans, and habitat.
Now meet our fearless leader, Manda.
Thank you, Michael. This is a tough act to follow, though.
Not really.
Hello, everybody. Or I guess I've written here, hello, fellow rewilders. Woo! Anyway, My name is Manda Kalimian, founder and president of Rewilding America Now, formerly known as the Canna Foundation. 6 years ago, at the Conservation Conference in 2019, the then conference organizers took a risk and invited a small foundation saving wild horses and working with native traditional ecological knowledge to be a part of the first conference here. My then partner, Moses Bringsplenty, a Lakota Sioux spiritual leader, and I stood in a small classroom in the building and shared our story to a group of interested young people. We were ingratiated into a community of like-minded people, something we didn't have in the US, and it was one of the most important days of my rewilding journey. 6 years later, I am back, and I have grown my team, and I am standing in the David Attenborough building in the company of some of the most important and significant leaders in today's rewilding and conservation movement. I am so honored to be here. Thank you for having us. But I am sure you're wondering who I am and how did I get here? Honestly, there are many times that I ask myself that very question. Simply, I got here by sheer determination, will, and the complete and total belief in the concept of rewilding, and understanding that the wild horses in the United States as a keystone species could be the key to creating rewilding habitats, opening the door to species preservation, conservation, and community-based economic opportunities. As to who I am, I do not have any real science training or a PhD in anything other than what my life experiences have taught me. But I am a deeply passionate person who believes change is possible and necessary for our survival and growth. I believe that saving one native species that has cultural and historic significance can save an entire ecosystem, set political precedents, and build communities. So I dug in my heels and set out on my own personal journey to make rewilding a mainstream concept in the US, and in this, to include wild horses as a component of this natural system. Each leg of the journey introduced me to new and different people, taking one step forward, but then oftentimes two back, each time learning from the situation and pivoting to accommodate the necessary change in strategy. I spent much time lobbying members of Congress as to why and how rewilding was the future and a way to better serve the American people's tax dollars, fight climate breakdown, and to reappropriate federal funding wasted on gruesome wild horse roundups on public lands. I would explain how these rewilding initiatives not only created invaluable biodiversity to help in the fight against climate change, but can create jobs, economic opportunities in the fight, opportunities to depopulated areas where communities are dwindling away due to the large lobbies killing the lands and the towns. I spent 10 years educating and bringing rewilding forward to all kinds of politicians, hosting events, visiting Washington. Rewilding policy, tax incentives, green energy, ecotourism, all around the creation of rewilding habitats. This was my mantra. But I think we all know the speed to which the government works, especially the US government. It needs a little rewilding. Nevertheless, one of the most significant changes for me occurred 5 years ago when I was introduced to a Dr. Ross McPhee, then curator of the American Museum of Natural History's Mammalogy and Paleontology Department. I was able to pique Ross's interest in rewilding, and Ross then generously offered this help, giving me the credibility to expand our work, bringing together the incredible science team that today comprises Rewilding America Now. There is a saying, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Finding land, partners, and open-minded people to understand the need for rewilding and addressing proper grazing practices that offer nature-based solutions for farmers and ranchers, and the idea that nature, as a restorative energy, can rebuild herself and the communities that surround these habitats. It's been a bit challenging. But the big question remained: where was the land for the rewilding project that I have imagined for the last 18 years that was going to offer land at scale to allow mega herbivores to roam with carnivores, to allow the horses to show they are an integral component to the natural system, a keystone species building biodiversity and creating public policy that would then protect the other animals as well as necessary components of this landscape? Now, to put into context the vastness of public lands in the U.S., the government agencies, the Bureau of Land Management, oversees 247.3 million acres of public lands. The U.S. Forest Service manages 193 million acres of forested lands, many of it contiguous to the BLM-managed rangelands. This is a total of 440.3 million acres of land. With all that land, and most of it being leased by special corporations, interest groups, and mining and drilling, I only need what seems like a small piece, just a little bit. On July 28th, 2022, through introduction, Ross received an email from a Dr. Dave Strickland from Idaho Falls. Dr. Strickland is an environmental biologist, a former range con for the U.S. Forest Service, headed up several NGOs, and was a professor at Brigham Young University in Idaho. Dave's email read as follows: "Nice to hear from you about the Rewilding Project. I've been thinking a good deal about the topic since earlier this summer when I was on the East Fork of the Salmon River in Idaho and watched groups of wild horses, elk, and mule deer negotiate each other while moving and grazing on a shared meadow landscape. It was fascinating to watch the interspecific behaviors, including the animal responses to different available forages in relation to who wants to be where and when, and who moves in response. Even in this depauperate bestiary, the process was fascinating." Oh, a lot of 4-syllable words. Ross's email reply to me read, "I believe Dave is our guy." My next email communication with Dave read, "I am solidly in support of the idea of rewilding using horses. Let me briefly explain why. I see horses and the other Pleistocene animals as not extinct, but more accurately, temporarily extirpated from landscapes in the West, the same as bighorn sheep, grizzly bears, and Townsend big-eared bats. All species that I have worked to reintroduce to geographies where they have been missing for decades. The Pleistocene animals have been missing from landscapes in the West for a bit longer, but in the evolutionary grand scheme of things, 6,000 or 12,000 years is only a blip in time. The vegetative communities that the animals co-evolved with are extant and just waiting for the herbivores to return and fill empty niches. Enter your rewilding horses plan. I understand and respect that you have spent years working on your vision, and I look forward to hearing and participating in your initiative and future plan." Well, my email response to Ross after reading Dave's last email was, yes, Dave is our man. The one thing that Dave neglected to share at first was that for nearly as long as I have been working to build rewilding initiatives, Dave had a vision for a wildlife corridor, 130 miles in length, flanked on the north and south by core areas and specific for carnivore migration, creating the perfect genetic highway along the Centennial Mountain ranges, and that two of those valleys, the Lemhi and Little Lost, refer to mountain ranges and a high elevation valley that control large animal migration movements on the Yellowstone to Central Idaho Wilderness Area's wildlife corridor. A small detail when looking for the perfect location to rewild the American West with the quintessential Ice Age mammal, the horse. Dave's understanding of his community and professional stature opened the door to convincing one of the 5 landowners in the Birch Creek Valley, who was a third-generation homesteader family, to sell their 4 grazing permits, 70,000 acres, along with their base property of 1,823 acres, but with the caveat that we would have 1 year from March 2023 to close. These permitted 70,000 acres lent itself perfectly for a migratory pattern. 10,000 acres of forest lands at a higher elevation for summer and early fall grazing, and the remaining 60,000 of sagebrush habitat at a lower elevation for winter and early spring. By the end of October 2022, Rewilding America Now's A-team was dispatched to meet with Dave and tour this potential opportunity. Ross, along with Wouter, flew from the Netherlands to Idaho Falls and out to Birch Creek Valley. The sheer scale of the landscape, the environmental positioning of this valley, along with the location of the initial 70,000 acres of permitted lands, created the ideal place for the first of its kind, large-scale rewilding habitat, a refugia for the wildlife corridor. The valley and the handful of surrounding towns have become depopulated. There are 900 people living in Lemhi County, and in the rural section of the county are 9 people for every 79 square miles. Understanding and seeing the value in all of these things, it was perfect. I like to believe it was the forces of nature that brought Dave and I together with the vision of Rewilding America Now, or vice versa. But whatever the synergy was, it lent itself to create this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But again, let me take us back to, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Realizing that doing something for the first time does not lend itself easily for potential investors. Explaining why a depopulated location in a remote valley was a good donation or investment, with land that had 120 years of cattle and sheep grazing, had its difficulties. So I had to rob my piggy bank and figure out how to buy the land and permits myself as to not lose this moment. And so on February 26th, 2024, a mere 2 days to deadline, I closed on the land and the permits. We have hit the ground running. As Dave likes to say to me all the time, we are building an airplane in the air. With that, there has been our fair share of turbulence, I can tell you, and many learning curves. But along with that, there have been amazing moments and surprises that reaffirm we are exactly where we are supposed to be. The local U.S. government agencies that are overseeing the permitted lands have not encountered anyone that wants to use permits for this purpose, and it has been tricky to navigate. It has also piqued the interest of these employees who are interested to see how the wildlife and rewilding would work. We are making inroads with local communities as non-threatening outsiders representing positive change, and we are saving many wild horses from the government's brutality, freeing them for their job as the quintessential Ice Age mammal and hindgut fermenters to roam freely amongst the other wildlife in the valley. From migratory grazing systems using wild horses that benefit farming and ranching, learning about traditional ecological knowledge through buffalo and wild horse grazing, media awareness to education and the creation of the first rewilding policy course at Cornell's Brooks Policy School, Rewilding America Now is moving the needle in creating rewilding landscapes and education in the United States. But now, with all this background and information I have shared, I would like to introduce Dr. Dave Strickland, Managing Director of the Mandalay Ranch and Rewilding in Birch Creek Valley, Idaho. Dave, why don't you tell these people what they'd like to know?
Can you hear me in the back? Okay, good. Thank you very much, and thanks to Manda. I'm honored to be here today among so many that have done so much. I'm going to stay over here because there's some videos embedded into the PowerPoint, and I think I need to shepherd them, so I will hide behind the desk, which is a nice place for a short, fat, white, bald man, if there were one here. All right. Let me introduce you to the landscape. This is Birch Creek, and I would like to tell you about it a little bit by introducing the summer landscape with a pronghorn video, and I'm not sure that I can get this. It's embedded, and it's quite short, but this is not photoshopped, so this is the landscape. All right. Yeah, that is. All right. On most Forest Service and BLM public lands in the United States, privately owned livestock are grazed under a long-term permit, often to the detriment of wild herbivores and carnivores. These public land grazing allotments are attached to privately owned land, and Manda, then, who you have met, has purchased private land in the Birch Creek Valley with 4 associated grazing permits where we are replacing domestic cattle with horses and eventually with bison. Our intent is to increase the wildlife population and restore some of the ecological processes and refill the empty niches that horses and bison once filled. So we see rewilding as a process, and we incorporate the 3 C's, cores, corridors, carnivores, and now yesterday we learned we need to add chewers. So those carnivores must eat something, so we'll have the chewers in there. And then the restoration of some of these empty niches then that begin to function. And I just want to tell you, and I'll show you a graphic of essentially these domestic animals are farmed on the public forests and wildland. And so a lot of these processes are not functioning. So that's the idea. And then many of the resultant ecological functions then begin to engage with one another, and the outcome is not predetermined. It will end up where it ends up. And this leads to an increased ecosystem functionality that we call properly functioning condition. Okay, let me get back on schedule here. The larger map at the right shows the features in the general area, and the various shaded areas on the larger map all are public land. So this is different, of course, than many of you from Europe and Great Britain will understand. This is about 97% public land. The white in it, and it's hard to see in this light, but there's little white sections in there. That's private land, and most of that is farmland. Okay, and I'll show better maps as we go along, but the point is that this is public land and will not be developed in the future. Okay, all right. Yellowstone National Park is shown on the east side here, and then these lightly colored shadings are National Forest or Bureau of Land Management land, but the darker shading one are also forests, but they have wilderness protection, which is usually a restriction of motorized travel. So you can't use vehicles in there. You have to go in on a horse or walk, and it's expansive and it's very rugged. So these are the two cores, and the corridor is between them in the Centennial Mountains. And the star, the red star then, is the Birch Creek Valley, and where Manda's ranch is. The Idaho National Laboratory is also public land. There are national reactors out there for science, but they wanted to hide them in a really non-populated area, and they picked Idaho long ago. And so there are reactors out there, but in between it is the sagebrush, and I call this an accidental preserve. The sage grouse don't know that the reactors are there, and we haven't told them. So, and then below that is a national monument. So Yellowstone National Park is about 900 hectares. The Idaho Wilderness Areas are larger. The distance between them is about 225 kilometers. The Birch Creek Valley is about 160 hectares. The year-round population density of the Birch Creek Valley is about 83 square kilometers per person. Okay. There's 14 in there, although there was a baby born. So I'm not. All right. So this is an expansive landscape where large-scale rewilding is genuinely possible, and that's why I picked it, because of the connection between the two cores and its preservation. Let's see if I've covered everything that I wanted to. I think so. Okay. The physical geography of the corridor, we're not creating the physical geography of the corridor. It exists. It's already there, and the vegetation and the habitat is in pretty good shape. Not as damaged as some places in the West. It's already in place. However, there are many empty and depauperate niches, for example, beaver, large hindgut fermenters, that would be the horses, large winter grazers, shrub canopy browsers. The shrub canopy has escaped and is 10 to 12 feet high, and there's nothing browsing that, and they're root sprouters, so they're never cut off, they're never browsed, they don't sprout from the roots, they're just up there and unavailable. Many things like mountain mahogany live several hundred years and are unavailable for ecological processes at that point. So that's not there. Ground lichen grazers are not extant anymore, and some carnivores and others. Well, our goals are to facilitate gene flow between the two main cores through the corridor, and when we did this, we moved the Birch Creek Valley into Montana. I apologize. The real estate, yeah, it's on Montana's on TV, so it's worth more money now. We're right down here. Thank you very much. And to secure the refuges along the corridor that enable establishment and security of rewilding processes. What that means is there are a few scattered private holdings that then these grazing allotments are tied to, and if you have those ranches, then you have the grazing all across the corridor. This corridor is wide enough for a grizzly bear habitat, for a sow to have a breeding habitat, okay? And they are moving westward. All right, and to contribute to the local socioeconomic environment. All right, more maps. Now, many of you will have noticed that the corridor here that I keep pointing to, if you can see that, is actually the southern part of the Yellowstone to Yukon corridor, but it's the most endangered and the most difficult one to capture and control, and that's why we're doing it right there. Okay? However, we believe that the Yellowstone to Yukon corridor is usually depicted inaccurately. With the borders of the corridor shown here, if you can see it, that are covered by private land. And it's being developed rapidly. And we do not believe that in 200 years that this will be that this is possible. This will be developed. It's not developed into farming. It's being developed into housing and ranchettes and that sort of thing. So that's not the corridor. The corridor then goes south of the Continental Divide along terraced mountains called the Centennials, and then through two mountain valleys here, through two passes, Uncle Ike Pass and Double Springs Pass into central Idaho. And these mountains are still just as tall on both sides, of course, but they are terraced here. And in fact, the wolfers from the beginning of the 1900s, who were hired by the government to trap and kill wolves and other grizzly bears in support of the livestock industry, called this corridor the Wolf Highway. A wolf could get across there in 2 nights. Okay, it's very travelable. So we believe that the emphasis, and there's a great deal of emphasis on this area, and it's just not in the corridor. You know, it's wishful thinking. All right. Well, let me move along. We believe that the more reasonable approach then, and this shows you, and bless their hearts, there's a lot of effort to link up these islands and such, but we said, well, let's just go through the real corridor. And that's why we have selected this ranch in this place. And by focusing on the intact, geographical, feasible travel corridor, we believe that our civilization may be able to leave to the next generation the option of maintaining these wildlife cores. Who knows if they'll take it? Okay, let's go back down to the star and let's go to the valley itself with Manda's ranch. You can see it was a cold and windy day. And here is the location of her ranch with this white private land. All of these are grazing allotments. The tan ones are BLM, and the green ones are Forest Service. The cross-hatched ones are the ones that Manda has purchased the rights to. They remain public land, and I know that this is different than many of you will be accustomed to, but it's only the grazing rights. People could come camp, people can hunt with a legal permit which is issued by the state. We do not control any of that, okay? But we do control the forage and, by extension, whether the predators live or not. Okay, all right. All right, let's see where we are. Okay, in the next video then, I believe where we are, let me see if I've said everything here. In late October 2024, we released rescue horses onto her private land. And this next video, Manda, this was important, you know, she said how long she'd been working on this, and you can hear her in anticipation of me letting the horses loose, saying, okay. And so let's just play that. No, the volume's not on.
Okay.
At the 73, that right there. 5 minutes? 2 minutes? We do have to see the whole thing, and I'll quit in time. Shown here is a typical distribution of the forage on public land and how it is distributed. Now, this is from a refereed publication from a BLM field office that is not ours, but it's in the neighboring state, and it's almost identical to the amount we have. And this is the amount of domestic, non-native, invasive species. They're called cattle. Okay. And this is the niche that we will fill with the bison and horses and expand the elk and deer and that kind of thing. That's where the available niche is for rewilding. We'll also be able to expand the other animals. As you can see, the bighorn sheep, the bison, all of the quintessential Ice Age mammals. We can get 5 of the 6 pictured here. There's one probably we won't be able to get.
Dave, just say we've got 15 minutes left for the whole session.
Okay, thank you. All right, so there's our goals, and we appreciate that, and thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Wouter Helmer, who you probably know, who's our science advisor and the co-founder of Rewilding Europe. He's going to interview Paul, and I'll leave it to you.
Maybe first explain a little bit how I got involved. So I was, only a few years ago, I was approached by Manda and Ross to share our 35 years of rewilding experience in Europe with their team in the US, and of course would love to do that. So we had some workshops online, and then they asked me to come over, and then actually I played a little bit hard to get, because I said, I will only come over if on top of what you are doing on lobby and advocacy work, you also should have a project in the field where you can walk your dreams and where people can walk your dreams. And I thought, okay, that should be enough. And but then, to my amazement, within 1 year, they came up with a portfolio of really 3 inspiring projects, and they so really within within a half a year, an amazing portfolio emerged. So then, one of them is just explained by Dave. 2 others, the smaller ones, small in the US scale. So we're talking about farms of thousands of acres, of hectares actually. So then there was no escape anymore. I had to go to join this ambitious team, and actually my role was mainly to, as I said, share the European experience with them, learning them to not make the same mistakes that I have done in my work in Europe, and implementing the success factors actually that Frans and David presented yesterday. That's my job in the team. But the other way around, we are also, I think as Europeans, we can learn a lot from the American situation. The scale, it's already mentioned. So I think there are not many places in the world where you can restore migration patterns on such a scale for large predators, large herbivores in so little time. I think it's really quite exceptional. And the special thing personally for me is that I was really impressed by the ecological knowledge of my indigenous colleagues in the team. And it's amazing how passing on ecological knowledge generation to generation since time immemorial leads to people walking in this area with the ecological wisdom that we hardly know in Europe. And I will not go into details now because of the time, but just my colleague Daryl Marcus' skills insight from the Rosebud Lakota tribe about relationship between man and nature. He learns to me more in a few weeks than actually my own parents learned me in 20 years. And that's where I want to leave my because of time. And but one of the persons who put ecological wisdom in practice is Paul Silbernagle from Silbernagle Farm. His wife Barb is also here. They together are pioneering a new rewilding concept on their farm. It's only 6,000 acres, so it's another scale than Dave is talking about, but there are only a few places where you can replicate Birch Creek, and there are probably thousands of places where you could replicate the model of Paul on his farm. So I think it's interesting to explore both ways to scale rewilding, and I want to to have a short interview with Paul, that he can explain how his farm is working. So I hope, yeah?
Have a chair.
Okay. So, Paul, maybe can you briefly explain what your rotation model with agricultural crops and large herbivores, how that works throughout the seasons?
Our ranch includes about 6,000 acres, and it's not all contiguous. So I have a couple thousand acres here, a couple thousand acres here, and it's spread over. I plant crops to facilitate feeding the animals, not just the domestic ones, but also the wildlife. I started this approximately, well, I've been ranching my whole life, but I started my own ranch per se about 45 years ago. And I implemented it correctly, I think, right away. And that was by preserving grasses so that wildlife can live on it and also that animals that we raise can live. I don't make the money that other ranchers make, but I do some cell grazing per se, they call it in other areas or whatever, but I really don't need to do it. It's just that I don't put as many animals on there to ruin the land as you would see like on some ranches. The neighbors beside me have half the forage I have. So I put on, like every year, if I have, in a couple thousand acres, I have 7 pastures, I'll maybe only use 5 of them. And every year I try to take 2 of them and lay them aside. And because of that, during the winter months, the migration of animals to our ranch, I've been told we have more wildlife than any place in North Dakota.
And you come back on that one. So maybe you can explain, where do you save costs on and where do you increase your revenue?
I increase my revenue because of the way we rotate. I can keep the same amount of animals as other ranchers, but because we preserve the land, I have to put more work into it by moving animals around and stuff. But I also facilitate, I go through the work of making sure I can use all my acreage. And the cost saving is that I can have more animals. They do more grazing. I don't feed as much. We let them graze even through our winter months. And, you know, our winters are severe compared to like maybe around this area.
Fertilizers, pesticides?
I don't use any herbicides. I mean, I don't use any fungicides or insecticides on our property. I use maybe half the amount of herbicides. I try not to use any if I can, and I limit fertilizer. I try to use everything in a natural state, you know, natural growth. We use the animals to fertilize the land. We graze our cropland with the animals, and the part is I don't have investors per se. It's me. It's me and my wife and my kids.
And
so
okay, I think there are farmers in the audience, I know, from yesterday. Maybe they can do, but most people are probably really rewilds, ecologists, also want to know what are the ecological achievements so far?
When we initially started this, I'm in a cattle country, and all my neighbors think I'm crazy, you know, but that's okay. That's all good. But how am I going to say this? We can see
what kind of species
we can see the different animals that have come back. 45 years ago when I started, just to give you an example, I mean, we had whitetail and mule deer, but 3 weeks ago, I had some people out there that were trying to bow hunt. And, you know, I'd like them to come out and see, but some bull elks came in, and we have moose. And a week ago, my grandson, I sent him out to get a trail camera, and he had to chase mountain lions off. And we have wolves. And so every year, there's a cost to all this, is we lose horses every year to wolves and mountain lions, and we lose cattle to that. But you know what? They got to eat too. You know, we all got to share this place.
In the meantime, you see some pictures from Paul's farm and a group of students that came there from Cornell University, they are doing a rewilding policy course. What you don't see on the map, I've been there now 2-3 times, that the air is full of hawks, vultures. There's beaver in the creek. Night hawks, you call them, night yars. We should call them in hunting there on daylight on the butterflies so it sounds quite close to agriculture, but in reality it's really a change towards a much richer ecosystem with deer everywhere.
And we have many plant species that are coming back. When I used to have cattle on the place, there was a lot of erosion and different things, and we are trying to regenerate that per se, or have it restored to its natural. So a lot of the natural grasses are coming back because it is all natural grasslands. It has never been tilled, a lot of this land. But because of overgrazing by the people before it and things, it grew into weeds, a lot of it. But over a period of 45 years now, I guess I've been rewilding for 45 years per se.
To what extent do you think your model is scalable in the U.S.?
I think anybody can do it. I think anybody in this room, I don't care if you got your backyard, and you can do it. It's what you make of it. It takes work. It takes passion. It takes you getting into arguments with the neighbor because he doesn't like what you're doing. It takes you
just in general. How do your neighbors, farmers, rangers feel about what?
Well, they come to me all the time, and they're angry because they would rather I give them room for their cattle. They want to expand their cattle herds, but at the same time they come and they're going, "How do you have this much grass?" What the hell are you doing here that makes it so different than ours? I mean, and it's a common thing that I go through all the time. But they're starting to learn from me. And the big thing is, we have a saying in America that action talks, bullshit walks. Okay? And so I try to feel that it's my job to do what I do so other people learn.
Yeah, we have to close, unfortunately, so we have to speak. But do you have a personal message for people?
Yeah, just you people are doing the right thing. Keep doing it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I guess on behalf of Rewilding America Now and all of us from the U.S., we wanted to say thank you so much for coming to hear about what's happening and for ingratiating us once again and to be the role models in environmental rewilding, creating sustainability in new ways, and offering us the opportunity to take back all of the wonderful thoughts, ideas, and work that you all are doing here. We are here all day. We hope you'll talk to us. We can answer any questions or any advice, opinions, thoughts, and anybody has. We welcome that. We need your help. We are here for any questions. And I know we are thinking of having we'd like to have Dave and Wouter, some scientists, right? We'd like to have some people from over on this side to come visit us at Birch Creek this summer, right?
Yep. We invite you, yes, really, because we build a home actually for researchers to do their study in our areas. So if you are interested, you are more than welcome to come to Birch Creek and do your work. But, yeah.
Right, and help us get started. We're very excited about the work that we're doing there, and Dave's vision and the horses and the landscape. And one other quick thing, we've now we have a relationship with a 5th generation rancher in the valley who very much wants to work with us, and it's a big, big deal. It's an inroad to this very closed community of a rancher like Paul who wants to put horses with his cattle, learn about migrational or rotational grazing, and bring wildlife back to do some rewilding in his location. So we're making strides. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. There's so many messages there. We haven't got time, unfortunately, for questions. There are loads of questions on Menti. Please follow up with Team America in a lunch break. I've written down, and I'm going to be using this phrase a lot. When talking about apex predators, Paul said, as a farmer, they've got to eat too. We've all got to share this place. That's going to drive me on with the politicians in the coming months. Thank you, everybody. We need to break now to make time for people to shuffle to other presentations. Start again in 5 minutes here.